Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We're your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we are here to share with you some awesome tech news here at bedtime. We've got a great show for you, so let's go ahead and get started. Apple might be revamping its iPad Pro lineup finally, and will be and they're going to be revamping their iPad Pro lineup to fix the device's sluggish sales, or at least that's what Mark Gurman determined, apparently. There are 4 upcoming models that will be first to feature OLED screens and the M3 chip. Sizes will range from about 11 to 13 inch, which is slightly larger than the current largest model that Apple sells. Apple is also revamping the Magic Keyboard by increasing the trackpad size and making it more laptop-like. Probably so myself can keep complaining about how I don't understand what the purpose of the iPad is. Guess what's a computer? So this is an interesting development by Apple and looks like it could have some interesting impacts and hopefully might boost their sales if we've got that for Apple. Do you think, Ben, this is going to increase iPad sales, or do you think they're still going to be sluggish because iPads are kind of in this weird market of not quite a tablet, not quite a computer?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change sales. It's the last decade of Apple has been the same thing, just copy and paste with some decent mediocre updates, if that. I don't think this is going to increase sales. Maybe people are going to upgrade, but they're probably going to be Apple loyalists. I think you're spot on with the reason why their sales haven't been high. They have a crazy range of iPads. They have the iPad Pro in multiple sizes. They have the iPad. They have the older iPads. They have the iPad Mini. They have the iPad Air. And it's there's so much selection here. And it's all in a very niche market of people who want a phone / laptop, but it's neither both.
Yeah.
And it's not good enough to be a laptop, but it's also too big to be a phone, and it can't be a standalone phone. So I honestly feel like an iPad is really good for artists who want to draw. Because I feel like that's one of the only reasons, or for, in my opinion, the older generation who want a bigger version of their phone that they can, like read news and
Yeah.
almost like treat it like a digital book and, explore the internet and social media. But it's not a laptop, it's not like Microsoft's product. And I don't think the iPad is going to be it's not going to have as much of demand as maybe what a laptop or their competitors are, which are as powerful as laptops. So I think this is, again, just rinse repeat from Apple. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think like pretty much the only people that would buy something like this are people that really value the Apple brand and not
Yeah.
necessarily the product. Uh, and I mean, that's not me saying that the product is bad. I have an iPad Pro, and I think it has some great features, but I definitely don't think that it can replace a computer at all. I mean, if they brought like maybe Mac OS, like a full-fledged Mac OS to the iPad Pro, I could see that bringing a whole lot of benefit to the iPad lineup, because then you could actually have desktop class applications running on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got a desktop class chip in it anyway with this rumored M3 chip that it's going to be in there, and that could run these powerful apps that the Mac can. And so I think that would be huge. That would be a huge step for the iPad lineup, just to have a Mac OS version. But
Yeah.
that would mean that Mac OS would have to have touch support, and we can't have that because why would they ever have touch screens on their Macs?
Yeah, it's so crazy. They have it on their keyboard. They have like the newer versions have like that touch trackpad, right? At the very top of the
Yeah,
keyboard.
such a waste of life.
Yeah, I know. It's like send an emoji by touching it on the
Yes.
trackpad. It's like, okay, why is that a cool feature? Just yeah. I agree 100% though with your sentiment. Until the iPads are capable of running as a standalone laptop, I don't think it's going to be in high demand because it's one or the other. You either get a laptop or you have an iPhone.
Mhm.
Like again, I think the only reason I've seen people get iPads is they're Apple loyalists and they want to have another device in the ecosystem. They're students and they use it for books and for note taking, or they're artists and they use it for drawing, and like rendering sketches, or they're designers, things like that. Or my parents who love to read the news and scroll on a bigger screen, but still have it be portable, right?
Right.
And so those are very small markets. That's not the majority of people. That's very niche down.
Yeah.
I want an iPad myself really badly, but it's so far down my priority list of what I actually need to focus my money on. And the value that I would get from it for the amount of money I spend is not there for the average consumer.
Right.
I mean, if you want to get a good, newer iPad, you're spending close to 1,000 plus, 1,000 to 1,500. What's that going to do? Like, what is the iPad going to do for you? Well, it's just going to be a glorified phone or my notebook or my sketch pad. Okay. That's $1,500,
Yeah.
Um, I don't understand the iPad mini. I don't understand that. That's just a bigger version of the phone.
I know. But it doesn't even have the phone app on that. I mean, if it
Yeah,
had
I
the
know.
phone app, that would be a wildly better device.
Agreed. If I could use that as a standalone phone, I would do that. I
Yeah.
would switch. No problem. But it's not. Also, the price point of the mini is significantly lower than like an iPhone 14.
I know.
They pretty much do like the same thing. Am I
Yeah.
wrong there? Like, am I
No,
missing besides the phone aspect, right?
yeah, besides the phone aspect, it can pretty much do everything
I feel
the
like you
same.
pretty much do everything. Maybe like cameras better on the 14, but I don't know. I just think that the price difference is drastic,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
But
I think iPads. I love how sleek they are, and I love how user friendly they are, and the portability is great. But I just don't see this need, the consumer need for the iPad, and I think that's how everyone is. They
yeah.
either say, well, I want something that I can do like a lot of processing with, whether that's video editing or like schoolwork or running my work through it or whatever. You can't really do that on your iPad. And if you can, you could do that on your phone. So why get
Right.
it? You just do it on your phone. So that's my thought.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I got it for college and I still have it around because it's still supported. So that's really about it. And it was
Yeah, if you
just
got
to,
it, use it, right?
yeah, it was just to read textbooks. And I haven't really used it much other than that, or to
Yeah.
have my kids watch it for road trips because that is a necessity
There you go.
when you're
That
going
is.
multi-state road trips. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if iPad sales increase. I don't think they're going to. And Apple's going to need to do something drastically different in order to get the market to really get into iPads. All right. Here we have Google is going to be recreating some of the Apple satellite SOS features on Android. So Google
Ooh.
partnering with Garmin, not Mark Gurman, to integrate their satellite SOS feature into Google's messages. This would allow users to text emergency services from remote areas without conventional call service, thereby ending every teen slasher movie before it could even begin. That would be awesome. It's not clear how much the new potentially life-saving service will cost, but Garmin, not Garmin's current system, requires a $15 per month subscription on a Garmin device. Apple did launch a similar service, currently free SOS service on the iPhone 14 last year, so at least the iOS loving elite would avoid dying alone and unmourned in the uncaring wilderness. Mark Garmin knows where you are. So this is interesting that Google is gonna be working with satellite SOS features. I think this is a really cool feature and a good step in the right direction, especially for those that like to go off the beaten trail, do a little hiking, and be a little adventurous. Now we will have the ability to have satellite SOS features. So I wanted to get your take on this. How do you think this feature would impact the market of standalone satellite communication devices like a Garmin or something similar, if now the service is just with Apple or Android devices?
That's a good question. I didn't even think about that. Mainly because I'm not too much of a off the grid adventurist. So I've never really had the need to think about satellite communication or
No
non.
backcountry skiing for you or snowboarding?
No, no, unfortunately, because that's where the good powder is.
Yeah.
But it's also where it's really dangerous. But yeah, I just I'm not sure how it's going to impact the market. I think maybe there could be an impact, but I don't think so because I think there's a lot of there. Personally, I would have hesitation going with relying 100% on my phone and their partnership with their technology, as opposed to having a reliable satellite, device that communicates. And I know that that company's been in the game for years and it's been reliable for years. I think I would just stick with that if I was in the market. Um, I do think it's a really cool technology. I hope it works really well, and I hope people can benefit from it. I'm not sure how I feel about the payment. It's almost like one of the big things in the article was this is going to give satellite access to people in 150 countries. Well, the majority of people around the world, they don't really have the means to pay for a monthly service,
Right.
or if they have the means, they need to pick and choose and be very smart with their funds. They don't have the freedom and luxury to say, oh yeah, another $15 every month, no problem. So it's almost like the rich can afford to be safe and the poor have to suffer, right?
Yeah.
But then I also had the thought of, well, maybe you don't have to pay every month. You just, whenever you're going to go on a trip, like, oh, we're going to go backpacking into the wilderness. We're going to go on a hunting trip or, stargazing trip. I don't know, whatever. And you're going for that month, just pay for the month, $15, whatever. Just another added fee to the camping trip just for insurance. That's the way to go. But, and also I don't know how expensive the competition is, right? How expensive are current satellite devices that you can use off the grid? I don't know what that price point's like. If it's significantly different, then maybe going with a cell phone that you haven't used before is the way to go. Thoughts? I'm curious. Maybe you know a little bit more about this industry than I do, because I'm a city slicker. I don't know this very much. I am an Eagle Scout, but I'm not much of a off the grid guy. So
I myself am not much of an off the grid guy either. I do have a Garmin satellite device, but that was just for camping and going on hiking trails that I knew we wouldn't have satellite service. So that way, in case we decided to talk with a bear, that we could at least send a text message or find out where we got eaten by that bear. So
people can find your remains
yes,
in the bear's
exactly.
belly.
Yes. right down to the specific point
It's
where it happened.
pinging on that bear. Oh no.
So I think this feature is really cool, but you brought up a good point that I don't know that I would trust, a phone to save my life. Like if I knew I was going out hiking somewhere that I wasn't going to have satellite coverage or cell phone coverage, I would buy a dedicated device to have satellite coverage for that, versus relying on my phone that may or may not work. Um, I mean, it's cool. Like if you find yourself in an area, that unexpectedly and you have that feature,
Yeah.
but if I were actually planning a backpacking trip, I I would be bringing an additional device. So I don't think that this is going to replace um, that type of those devices in that use case. I think it'll just be giving more people who would not have had access to it. And I don't think it's going to hurt the market share at all. I think somebody who would still want dedicated devices would go out and spend a little bit of money for those.
Mm,
Um, I
yeah.
don't think that the paying for the service is really great, mostly just because I'm tired of subscriptions anyway and paying for everything on a monthly basis. It really annoys me. And so, but I'm pretty sure Apple's SOS service is going to go into a monthly subscription thing too. Eventually, I believe that was their
Yeah.
plan.
After
So,
the 2-year free trial.
yeah. So I don't think that this is a novel move on Google's part to do this, but
Yeah.
it is something that those that could not afford it that may need it will be priced out of it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But
So interesting new service that they're offering. It'll be kind of it'll be a good like learning experience, I think, on what the market does here. If people are willing to pay for it. So
yeah, I agree. All right. Microsoft is splitting Teams from Office in Europe after the EU pressure is put on Microsoft.
yup.
Break this down for us.
Yeah, so we talked about this before. There was pressure from the EU on Microsoft to split Microsoft Teams out from their Office suite. So when companies in Europe buy Microsoft Office, they're automatically getting Microsoft Teams. And a lot of competitors, mainly Slack, which is Salesforce's version of their intranet, intra communication software, they complained that this is anti-competitive and goes against the anti-competition laws. And so as a result, there is all this pressure. And Microsoft, according to this article, effectively just said, hey, we're just going to split it. We're just going to make sure that you have the option to buy Microsoft Teams standalone and buy our Office standalone, our Office suite standalone. And then they break down the charges and stuff. So, it's €2 less per month for Microsoft 365 and Office 365, who says without the Teams app. So if you want the Teams, it's an additional €2 per month per license, I'm assuming. New customers who want to buy Teams can buy it separately for €5 per month per user. So there's a price difference there. If you don't get the Microsoft suite, you're going to be paying more for Teams. If you get the Microsoft suite, it's cheaper. They give you a discount. Obviously, that's usually how most businesses run, right? You're loyal to
Right.
the business. You buy a bundled package, you get cheaper offering, whatever. I'm actually a little surprised by this, but I want to get your take on it. There was no lawsuit or anything. Microsoft just kind of said, we just want to avoid any of that. We'll go ahead and split it out. What's your take on this? Do you think this was the right move by Microsoft? Do you think they really needed to? Um, do you think that they were really pushing the boundaries of uh, the market, and were they being anti-competitive in this sense?
I think this is a really consumer friendly move. Something that I didn't expect to have happen. And I'm pretty Microsoft may have done this just because they spent all that money on the Activision merger for legal fees, so they didn't have any more for legal fees for this. That's just a very hyperbole theory there.
That actually came
However,
across my mind of like I'm just thinking like maybe they don't want to have to deal with EU and legalities and things like that because they've already been dealing with it.
yeah. So I think this is really cool. It shows that Microsoft is, listening to consumer base and is willing to do things that are a little bit more consumer friendly. I think this buys a lot of goodwill for Microsoft
Yeah.
in that they are willing to work with their customers and provide offerings that best suit their clients' needs rather than trying to force something on everybody that is just good for Microsoft. I don't think Microsoft needed to do this. I think they probably would have been just fine without it. I mean, there are other big tech big tech companies that do the same thing and are getting away with it currently in the EU, such as Apple with all of their services. So I personally think that they would have been just fine and if they would have stayed, but I think this shows a lot of growth and a lot of maturity for Microsoft in offering products that will benefit their consumers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised by this. I thought the same thing. I don't really think this is anti-competitive. It's a bundled package. Um, you buy Microsoft Word, you're getting Microsoft Excel. Most people don't need both, but they use both, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's all stemmed from a complaint from a competitor. And so from that aspect, I think if I was Microsoft, a part of me and my pride would double down and say, I don't need to do that. This is totally fine for me to bundle. I'm sorry that you're not competitive enough to be on the same level as me, but I agree with you. I think this is goodwill. I wonder if there is better margins for them separating it out. That's something that I thought of because it does, on the face of things, look as though this is a good PR move for Microsoft and goodwill for the consumer and saying, hey, we're willing to allow our current customers who have Teams to move off. We're bettering the integration with Teams with other softwares and also other intranet or intra communication softwares with our Microsoft suite. We're trying to improve that. So this is all very good for their PR and the face and the brand of Microsoft. But I also wonder if they're charging $5 per month per license for those new customers who only buy Teams. Is that bringing in an extra line of revenue
I
and
think it
breaking
is.
into is that bringing in new customers who otherwise wouldn't be buying it because they think I don't need all that Microsoft suite. I'm using the G suite. I don't need Microsoft, but I want Teams. And so
Mm.
there's got to be some kind of, I would assume that there's some other benefit that we're just not seeing. And Microsoft thinks this is a win-win, right?
Yeah, I think
Uh,
this will make Microsoft more money on the bottom line because now, like, if they probably had this bundled service at a particular price, and now that
yeah,
they've separated it, they can slightly increase the price for each item that they've unbundled. And
yeah,
um, now it'll allow people to, I guess, buy more services for them because maybe a corporation wouldn't get the whole Microsoft suite because they didn't need all of the features, but now that they can get what they need in an a la carte type method, now they might get more share with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I think like behind the PR stunt that this is, I think it's really just we'll make more money if we do this. So let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if they thought they were looking at the numbers and doing analysis on like financially what's the price point that's going to actually make us money, and then they realize, oh, if we actually break it out, we could actually break into new markets where people don't need our Microsoft suite, but they would use our Teams, and that's additional five euros per user per month. And I think, oh, okay, yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's two birds, one stone. Better PR, and we look good. We're trying to help our customers, and then we get new market and new revenue. I don't know. So interesting take. Slack might have just shot themselves with this complaint.
They might have.
So,
but now they must live with it.
yep.
So, all right. Looks like we have Google is not removing watermark for AI images. We've got a reason why they're not, and it's probably not going to fix much here. So what do we have going on here?
Yeah, so Google, they have their AI segment of the company, and essentially their AI team is called DeepMind, Google's DeepMind. And then in DeepMind, there's a section or a group. Synth ID is this. I don't know if it's a software or I don't know what it is, if it's the name of the group, but they created a watermark that is now being embedded in Google's image AI creator. And I think it's called Imagine. But it's just like ChatGPT's Dolly or what's the other Midjourney.
Midjourney,
Sorry, I blanked there. Anyway, creates images, right? Google's has their version of creating images. They're watermarking it, but it's invisible. You can't see it with the naked eye. You can't edit it out. You can't change it with Photoshop or anything. It's there. And it can't be like cropped away or anything. It's there. And then they also have a device, with Synth ID. There's a device to detect if images have this watermark to see if they are AI created. And there's like 3 tiers of this sensory. It's like no AI created, or possibly AI created. So it's not the most accurate, but
right?
it's there. But this is a really interesting take from LifeWire. And they say that it won't solve the problem of proving authenticity, because people can still create fake images off of Imagine. They can create fake images on their own that's not AI generated. And then people can make AI generated images in other aspects, and it can still be used. And if no one can really see the watermark, then what's the point of having it? And what's the point of even having the watermark if it's not going to filter for anything, and we can't really tell if everything's going to be authentic? This is such a niched down way of proving if it's AI generated or not. And so the whole point of the article is saying cool technology, but it's not really getting us anywhere. And if the world wants to avoid, fake news and dispelling false rumors or false imagery, literally false imagery, then there needs to be an ecosystem of authenticity for all digital media, not just what's coming out of Google's Imagine. And so it's a really interesting take here. So I want to ask the question, do you think it's possible that the world and this world of AI and technology can get to a point where, regardless of the source material, there's a way to detect if it's an AI generated image or not?
Ooh. That's an interesting question. you know, I think we need to have some sort of detection. And I as interesting as kind of controversial as this is, I kind of like the idea of universal watermarking. So at least people could know, hey, this is an AI created image, and it's not it, it may or may not be real type of a thing. Because I've seen things on the internet where AI is creating these really lifelike images that are completely false, and it's hard to distinguish them. So I think this idea of universal watermarking may be beneficial, and I think that this type of technology of detecting it, and as long as it grows and is useful in detecting it, I think would be a good idea. What are your thoughts?
I agree. And I think if there was something to identify the authenticity, um hopefully that could be some type of software that can be embedded or implemented into multiple aspects of the world. So for example, if I create a book and it's all AI image generated, if I upload it as like self-publishing to Amazon, Amazon would be able to detect with this software, hey, this is AI generated, and just have a little note on my listing. Note, this is an AI generated book, or
Mm-hmm.
the images on this book are AI generated, even if the artist doesn't declare it. I think that would be good for people to understand, especially if there's journalists who are publishing images, media publishing images, and eventually video will look very hyper realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting there. And so I think it's important that we have an idea of what's real and what's not real, or else there's going to be an insane amount of confusion, manipulation, and that we don't need more of that in the world. I also think it will protect artists. I think it will protect artists because if you have a book or a painting or a print that is not AI generated, people will understand the value and the talent that it took to reach there. And I think people will look differently at AI generated art and say, that's cool, but like a computer did that. You didn't do
Right.
that. You just typed in a few words. Maybe you typed in a few words 10 times and you got that, you know? But this person over here has significant talent and has dedicated themselves to make a realistic picture of something that inspired them or they're passionate about. So I think it's good because I think it'll protect artists. I'm trying to look at the downsides here and see what the downsides could be of a watermarking. Um, and I wonder if like a false positive watermarking could be an issue.
Yeah, false positives. Another one I was thinking of, it could devalue the creation, because people might not, just because it's created by AI, may not give as much value to that as something that's created by an artist.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and I could see that. I mean, like with AI, it's not a human create, but there was human input into
Yeah.
that. And so I think it's just the focus of input and creation is shifted a little bit with
Yeah.
AI.
The medium of how they create whatever they're inspired to create is different.
Hmm.
For some, it's a paint brush and paint. For others, it's a keyboard and an AI image generator.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great because it gives like other people who may not have the talent to physically paint something, but still have the creative aspect in their mind of visualizing. It gives them another way to visualize that.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think one of the downsides to this, like um, if there is a watermark applied to all of that, it's kind of like putting an asterisk by every picture, and it could potentially devalue the art of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, this is an interesting take, and I think it could have some potential positive things, but also If not implemented correctly, it could have some negative affects to it. All right. In a surprising move, Elon Musk has decided to eliminate the block feature from his platforms. This discussion has stirred a lot of discussions in the tech world, and with many debating its implications for online communication, harassment, and user safety. What do we have going on here?
Yeah, so this is last week. This was pretty big in the tech world where Elon said, "Hey, we're getting rid of the block feature, except for in DMs, you can block people. But for example, you can't block people from commenting on your page or commenting or retweeting, re-Xing, I don't know, reposting, whatever they call it." I don't know.
Yeah,
But
nobody knows what to call this anymore.
yeah, and I think it's just so funny. How long is he going to keep the X and then in parentheses formerly Twitter? My emails that I get from X is X formerly Twitter. I just think that's funny. But regardless, he's pushing to get rid of the block feature. And there's a lot of people who are upset about it. The reasons why he's getting rid of the block feature is because he wants to protect free speech. Because if someone posts something that's controversial and they don't like responses from certain people, they have the ability to block them so they can't comment on or retweet on their post. And Elon wants to avoid that. He wants to have open discussion all the time where anyone can say what they want. That's free speech. And a lot of people are upset about it because they don't like harassment. They don't like people continually tweeting at them or not messaging, but commenting with comments with another person being referenced, right? I can spam a comment section and say at Ethan Anthony, at Ethan Anthony, at Ethan, and that's annoying. And a lot of people don't like arguments. They don't like debates and discussion. They get very emotional. And so people avoid that by just blocking, which I can understand, but at the same time, I can also see how that can be childish.
Right.
What's your take on this? Do you think getting rid of the block feature is a good thing, or do you think it's a bad thing? And what would be your decision here if you were in Elon's shoes?
Ooh. Well, I have very different opinions than Elon Musk. And ultimately, I would probably, if I have to pick one, I would say that I would keep the ability to block on the platform if it were
Mhm.
me. Um, Reason being just purely for safety of other people and dealing with harassment. Um, those are some huge things that get exponentially bigger on an internet platform where there's a lot of anonymity and you're not actually talking to somebody, and so it kind of magnifies the people's behavior. And
Yeah.
so um, removing that ability to block someone can potentially hurt or can potentially allow somebody to have more medium of harassment, bullying, and can affect the safety of people. I do understand and see the reason behind this of wanting to create more freedom of expression, freedom of speech here. And by removing that, it can increase freedom of expression and free speech and allow more discussions that would not otherwise take place because of it. However, I think the risks of doing this outweigh the reward in this instance.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I'm I'm kind of split because I have seen the harassment side of things where you definitely should block certain people who are being absolute trolls to the extreme level, to the disrespectful and emotionally abusive level, right? But then there's also people who are, they treat, they have a trigger finger for the block button, and
Yeah.
they love to sit in and talk in an echo chamber, and they don't allow any discussion on a controversial or contrary opinion. And I think that's very harmful. And in my opinion, I think if you go to a public space and you publish your opinions, there should be a public discussion.
Hmm.
And so I think I'm leaning more towards, I I kind of support this, but there's also a part of me that says, oh, that seems like a little too sketchy, like a little too open. And so I'm trying to think of a happy medium where maybe we keep the block feature, but if you're blocked, you can petition to have yourself unblocked, and Twitter reviews it and says the discussion you're having is not abusive, not emotionally abusive. As a result, we allow the unblocking, and then we'll tell the person who tried to block you, like, hey, you have no grounds for blocking this person. Or maybe people get 5 blocks per month or something. I don't know. But I'm just trying to think of a happy
Yeah, there
medium.
needs to be a medium. It can't be one just like the stark, ends the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah, the extremes. Like it maybe it's not just pass or fail. Like, yes, there's a block, or no, there's no block. But I think Elon got a lot of pushback from this, and so I wonder if he might change his mind. I think very similar to how he was initially treating the check mark in
Yeah.
Twitter Blue. You know, he had to revamp it a few times and have the new CEO had to kind of come in and do damage control there. So this is first iteration of just coming out saying, yeah, we're getting rid of the block feature. Maybe that's just, he's just testing the waters of the market to see what people's reactions are, and then go back to the drawing board. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think with like stuff that Elon does is overly scrutinized more than if it was somebody else
Oh
that would
yeah.
have done this. I mean, what like if Mark Zuckerberg or somebody else would have done this, it probably would not have gotten as much flack. But just because it was Elon doing it, now we're over it. It's more publicized and in the media otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you brought up a really good point about, Twitter being kind of like a public forum, and if we were to take this like somebody just talking on the streets for somebody else, and they were sharing their opinion, and somebody else was, say, come up to them and said something else, there'd be no way to like block them without like either physically hurting them or having law enforcement involved.
Yeah,
And
or just
so,
removing yourself completely,
right.
which is like, okay, just shut down the app.
Hmm. And so, if like Twitter is really a public space, then removing the block feature would be akin to how it is in real life. Because when you're in public, you have no expectation of privacy. So
Yeah.
maybe if Twitter is a public forum, there is no expectation of privacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what Elon's going for, is just, hey, this is open space. People can kind of say what they want to an extent. Like, obviously there's laws around, hate speech and things like that. But yeah, you can't just block people because you don't like what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I'm a libertarian or a vegetarian, or if I'm, very extreme in my certain opinions on, I'm not saying that libertarians and vegetarians are, I'm just saying, that's one opinion. And then someone that's on the Atkins diet comes in and says, you're crazy. You can't just block them because you don't like what they're saying in real life. Right.
Right.
I think that's what Elon's getting to, is
Mm-hmm.
there should be more discussions and people need to learn how to have those discussions, even if they disagree.
Yeah.
In a amicable. Is that the right word?
I think so.
Amicable. I don't know. In a respectful manner.
Yeah. So interesting move by Elon. We'll see how this decision evolves, because I don't think this is the last we'll hear about this.
It's amicable,
Yes.
not amicable.
New word of the day.
I was like, I swear that's wrong. It sounds kind of right, but I don't think I'm saying it right. Amicable. Thrown in an L there. Amicable. This lollipop is amicable.
Yes.
Very amicable.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how this evolves, and we'll keep you all posted. However, on that note, we have come to the end of our show. We want to thank everyone for sticking with us and for your support. So if you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. That really helps with our channel and getting us out to everyone who would love to hear this. If you disliked it, I guess that other button works okay too. Make sure you send it to somebody you dislike so they have an opportunity to watch it. As always, ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling button so you never miss any content as it comes out on our show. Until next time, stay classy, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.